for me personally, I started learning about credit in 2020. So even though for me after college I didn't directly pursue business, I got myself a job. I always kept up with credit because credit was something that I was just fascinated by. I knew at some point I wanted to launch a business and I knew it was going to require money. So I wanted to set myself up no matter what the time frame was, just so when it was time to do business, I had the funds. So for me personally, I got into business about 2.5 years ago. So, me being in the credit space since 2020, this is something that I already have 6 years of experience. I would talk about it to everybody. And the funny thing is, like, not a lot of people are interested in it. So I kind of would have conversations, with peers in the mentorship groups. But credit is just one of those things where I found a passion for, and I could talk to somebody all day long about it and explain it, all that. So I think for me, what made me realize, like, okay, I'm ready to teach this is the confidence that I had. Any conversation, any building I walk into, I always felt like I was the smartest when it came to credit, just because I started realizing not a lot of people know about credit. And most people will say they do know about credit, but not to the degree I know. Because the thing is people think credit is all about a credit score, but in reality, it's kind of like a transcript, right? So the way I like to explain it, imagine when you go to school, right? You got different classes, you get different grades, and then you have a transcript that shows that to any university you're planning to join. If you want to be with the Ivy Leagues, right? We're talking Stanford, Yale, you need to have the best possible transcripts, the A pluses, the AP classes, right? That's the same thing with a credit report. You need to be with the big banks. You need to have the big limits. You need to have certain things that look really great so then banks approve you. The thing is, most people don't see that side of credit. They just see a score. So they say 700, oh, my credit is fantastic. 800, my credit is fantastic. But there's more than that. There's more layers. So that's kind of once I realized most people just think on that surface level, that's when I realized, okay, not only are most people like uneducated, but I definitely know a lot more than the average person. And this is something that I want to help other people understand because, again, it changed my life. And if it changed my life, I know it can change somebody else's.
How did you get your foot into the door to understand, like you said, there's so much more than just a credit score of like 700 or 800 plus credit score? Like when did you realize that there's so much more to it? Was it like when you were applying for it and you started to understand the systems behind what banks were looking for or what people were looking for?
Yeah, so honestly, what it was is a lot of mentorships and a lot of executing. So the first mentorship I ever got into, that was, I want to say, like the one that really introduced the doors to credit to me and then taught me about, going to banks and how to apply what they're looking for. But then through getting more interested in credits, I started investing into other mentorship communities. So I've spent well over 100,000 on mentorship in the credit and funding industry. But it's interesting because when it comes to credit, there's no like 100% accurate thing. Everything is just data. And once we have all this data, we're able to see what most of the time is highly likely to get approved. So once we have all this data, we're able to optimize the person for the best position possible. So that's really where I started learning there's more layers to it. The first mentorship kind of taught me, the deep side of credit, but then all these other little mentorships I was taking really started teaching me more about certain other things banks are looking for. Because again, we could talk all day about this, but it's not just the score. The banks want to see who you bank with, how long you banked with them, how much money you've borrowed. Even the bank you're applying to is checking, are you a client of ours? Are you not a client of ours? They're comparing what you have to what they should give you.